What's up, guys? 2022 is already here, and man, I think I'm still stuck in 2019, to be honest with you. These past 2 years have been a total blur for me, and I don't think I'm alone in that. But 2021 was a very important year for me here on YouTube. I hit some pretty big milestones thanks to you guys, so again, thank you. Your support really does amaze me. But before I turn this into another thank you video, let's get into the topic of this video. As you can probably tell by the title, I'm here to talk about my top games of 2021. Played a good amount of games this year, and I'd like to share those with you guys. Here's a list if you're interested. I believe this is almost everything I played this year. I tried my very best to keep this as up to date as possible. But this list is not fully representative of my year and what I spent most of my time playing. The only criteria I had for this list is that I actually played the games, no matter for how long. So a few of those games I just spent a few minutes in, and the others I spent hours. Now this list is mostly just in chronological order, so I'll talk about my game of the year later. This just happens to be in the order that the games appeared on my list, because that's when I played them throughout the year. So, let's get started. Welcome to The Cut. Oh man, Cyberpunk. I have no idea where to even start to talk about this game. This is single-handedly the most hyped I have ever been in my life for a game, movie, anything like that. It got to a point where I was telling myself there was no way I was going to let myself die before this game came out. It was that serious to me. So, that first delay hit, and honestly, I was okay with it. I was still going to meet it right in the middle of college classes, so I thought it was going to help me out. Then it was pushed from September to November, and I was thinking, wow, I've got the exact same issue, but at least I'm going to have Christmas break coming up to play it, and I was still blinded by hype at this point. Then it got delayed one final time to December, and I was conflicted. On one hand, I really was going to have free time to play the game at launch, but on the other hand, I was worried by the number of delays. From past experience, I knew that many delays did not bode well for the game. And when that December 10th date finally rolled around and I got into the game, oh man, it was rough. I had terrible performance in the game, and I kind of just blamed that on my aging hardware, because early in the year I planned to fully upgrade my PC just for this game. I bought a brand new 1440p monitor, and I was planning on getting a graphics card around Christmas, but as I'm sure most of you know, that's not really possible. But I dealt with it. I turned down my settings, and I got a somewhat playable FPS, and I tried my best to enjoy my time. And then, as I got further along, I began to see the holes in the game, and honestly, at points I was just becoming frustrated by playing the game. Early on, during the big heist when you're sneaking out of Arasaka's building, I almost rage quit due to the frustration I had with the AI. Like, I legitimately had to get up from my desk and walk around my room because I was just extremely angry at the game. This was something that I was looking forward to for so long, and for it to fall so short in terms of my expectations, I was honestly left heartbroken. CDPR in my eyes before this game came out could do no wrong after The Witcher 3 and its 2 expansions, but that reputation in my eyes has been permanently tarnished. Cyberpunk for the last year has been the laughingstock of AAA gaming, and for a while just mentioning the game and how it failed to live up to expectations was just free clicks. And honestly, that's not what I'm trying to do here. Because after finishing the game, I have to say I overall had a positive experience. I love the story and the characters, and the game has a lot going for it. It just didn't fulfill on the promises that were given before the game released. I finished the game early this year, so that was before all the big patches, but from what I've heard, the game is in a much better state, but I haven't returned to it since then. I'm waiting on that next-gen re-release that is supposedly coming in 2022, and I have my fingers crossed, even though I probably shouldn't, for a No Man's Sky level comeback, because I really do believe this game could be something amazing.
For all times in a blaze of glory.
Hades checks so many boxes for me. It's a roguelike with amazing art, amazing music, like really amazing music, and a story that is presented in a way where you never want to stop playing so you can learn more about these characters and the world that they inhabit. Also, it's just killer gameplay and combat that it instantly got me hooked. This is another game that has been talked about endlessly, but that's for a good reason. I was recommended this game by Davis, who I'm sure you've heard on the channel before.
The zombie!
Thank you, Davis, for this.
Zombie! Zombie chasing me!
What did I just stumble across, bro?
Help me! Help me! You're chasing me, man.
And well, him being a huge Percy Jackson fan back in middle school, it really feels like this game was pretty much made for him. So, off his recommendation, I picked this game up, and I'm very glad I did. It's by far one of the best experiences I've had this year, and it's stuck with me ever since. Run after run of interacting with different Olympians and hearing about the roles that they play in the main character Zagreus' escape from the underworld, it totally drew me in, and I didn't stop playing this game until I saw those credits. And even then, I didn't stop, because I felt like there was so much more to do in this game, and it still feels that way. My biggest hope is honestly that we just see some form of DLC, because I'm looking for any sort of excuse to come back to this game. Supergiant has an amazing track record going for them, and Hades just adds on to that list of amazingly crafted games from them. I was a fan of Bastion back when that game released, but I really don't think I appreciated it for what it was because I was fairly young at the time. So after completing Hades, a replay of Bastion and all the other games in Supergiant's roster has made its way to the top of my very lengthy backlog. So, if Hades never gets any sort of expansion, I'll always have their past games to go back to, and I'm excited to do so. Due Process. Now this is a game that was made for me. It's got a cyberpunk setting, which if you couldn't tell earlier is kind of a soft spot for me. And not only that, it's also a retro futuristic setting as well, which I absolutely love. This game is essentially an 80s cyberpunk Rainbow Six Siege, but in my opinion, it's much more unique and I adore it for that. It's a tactical shooter with attack and defense stages much like Siege, but with a very creative twist. In each game, the map is procedurally generated, meaning that map knowledge is completely out of the window. For me, this is great, because map knowledge is really what frustrates me most about Siege. At times, it feels like it's more important to know where to camp and where to punch a hole in the wall than it is to strategize and actually outplay your opponent. I would go into much greater detail on Due Process, but I'm gonna stop here because I have been planning a video on this game for a while now, so stay tuned for that. I have a Google Doc that I made to write down notes about games that I played this year, and all I wrote down for Outer Wilds is beautiful experience, never wanted marshmallows more in my entire life. Now I could leave it at that, but I do have just a bit more to say about this gem of a game. I won't say much because this is definitely one of those games that is better if you go in completely blind, but I will say, man, this game is relaxing. Roaming the game's solar system as you piece together the puzzle of this game's story is some of the most fun I had this year, and I highly recommend it to everyone. The characters are interesting, the music is amazing, and the gameplay loop, literally, is full of the most interesting mechanics I've seen in a game in a long time. It's 100% worth your time and money, and it's going to be on Game Pass soon actually. I haven't dove into the DLC yet, but I do plan on doing that soon. I really do think this game qualifies as one of those instant classics, and I think it's going to go down as one of my favorite games of all time. So please do yourself a favor and play this game. Make sure you're paying attention to the text logs that you find, and I promise you, you'll have an amazing time. So, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum of a relaxing marshmallow roasting simulator is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. This game is non-stop action and I love it. Intense music with satisfying combat and movement, it all adds up to just a really fun time. The story, it's out there for sure, but it's funny and great in that cheesy sort of way, and it's full of memes. The game is very short, but honestly I think it benefits from that. This is one of those games where you can pick it up and finish it in an afternoon and have a great time while doing so. This is definitely one of those underrated gems in my opinion. It's got the Metal Gear name attached to it, but I think people have overlooked it because it really isn't anything like the other games in the series. But in my opinion, it's a total power trip, and you should really check it out. This year, I finally went back and I finished Hotline Miami 1 and 2. I started the first one a while ago and I never really went back to it for some reason. But this year, I started fresh and I finished both of them back to back. All I have to say is I really do have a love-hate relationship with this series. I love the art style, the setting, music, story, all of that is phenomenal. But the gameplay, it just leaves me frustrated at times. The game is really hard, and that by itself isn't a bad thing. It's what causes the game to be hard that's the issue. The AI in both of these games are just dumb and erratic. You can play out the start of a level 10 times and have a great run going, only for it to all fall apart as one random henchman does something that they've never done before in your previous 9 attempts, causing you to die in the most frustrating way possible. The amount of times I died at the very end of a level because an enemy did something unexpected drove me insane. A huge part of these games is memorizing spawn locations and the pathings that characters take throughout a level. So when enemies act in a way that they've never done before in your previous attempts, it is extremely frustrating. And I don't even want to get started on the doors. I don't think an inanimate object has ever caused me so much frustration in a video game. These problems that I encountered in the first game only seem to be amplified in the sequel. The levels are larger, which is the single most frustrating thing about the series. These large levels are the home of the bane of my existence, off-screen enemies. Like I said before, memorizing spawns and pathing is key in beating a level. So when you take the ability to do that away by placing dozens of enemies outside of your vision, it just becomes unfairly difficult. Now, some of you might say, get good, you're just trash, and I would respond with, maybe you're right, but how is it fair that an enemy can see me and shoot me before I even know that they're there? The answer is, it's just not fair, and for me that doesn't make for an enjoyable experience. So why are these games on my top games list of this year, you might be wondering? That's a great question, and honestly it's just because these games both got me hooked. No matter how frustrated I was trying to beat a level over and over and over again, I was still just left with this undying urge to go back one more time and finally beat that level. And the feeling that you get when you finally do get past that section or beat that level, it's amazing and really is a total rush of dopamine. It's that rush that you get that makes me love both of these games despite the frustration that they cause. When things do go right, it's the most fun you will ever have mowing down mobsters, I promise you. So which one of these do I like better than the two? Like I said, I think most of the problems have gotten worse in 2 rather than better, so I'm gonna have to go with 1. 2 definitely has a lot more variety because of the different characters and their abilities and restrictions, and it keeps you on your toes. Normally in video games, when a game knocks me out of my rhythm and I'm forced to take a new approach, it's kind of refreshing as it keeps you from doing the exact same thing over and over again. But in this game, I can't really say that I enjoyed it that much, it just kind of left me frustrated. The sequel also has tons more story, and it is 100% essential to understand it all. How these two games interact story-wise, by the way, is just masterful. I'm sure there was tons of planning to make sure all this worked, and once I finally pieced it together and understood it all, I have to say, I think they nailed it. But overall, I prefer 1, as it's much more streamlined and I feel like it doesn't have that extra fluff. 2 has the better story and it's much more enjoyable if that's what your main focus is. But the music is amazing in both, and I'm constantly going back and listening to both soundtracks. So if you want to start the new year off with some pain and frustration, check these 2 out. At the very least, you'll get some good music out of it. Playing Titanfall 2 this year was truly a breath of fresh air. In a modern AAA landscape where every game feels like it was made to be a cash grab first and a video game second, Titanfall does something completely different. This game is a truly well-crafted experience that was polished and perfected by a team of passionate developers. When this game started to have a resurgence this year, I was beyond excited because I always felt that this series never really got a fair shot thanks to EA. Unfortunately though, that momentum was halted by hackers and DDoS attacks. Because I was unable to play online, I decided I might as well finally check out the campaign because I've heard so much praise for it. This game from start to finish is action-packed and I honestly don't think there was ever a dull moment. From the moment that amazingly intense introduction was finished, I knew this game was going to be all I was thinking about until I finished it. And that's exactly what happened. That first night of playing, I had to force myself to go to bed because I kept telling myself, just one more mission, and then just one more checkpoint. And after just a few more times of booting this game up, I was left with that hollow but great feeling. The one you get when you know you just finished something amazing. This game is everything you could want in an FPS campaign. Large, beautiful environments to explore that still hold up graphically today. Each level feels like your own sandbox where you're free to experiment and take each conflict in your own way. Oftentimes there are multiple ways to approach an objective, and the game even rewards exploration with hidden collectibles. Another aspect of this game that immediately stuck out to me was the sound design and how much it adds to the overall experience. When a Titan falls from the sky, they create so much presence through the sound that they make. And these Titans have extremely powerful voices that immediately captivated me. Especially BT and that dry humor that he brings.
Our paths will intersect just up ahead.
Missing me already?
I was not shooting at you. That would be in violation of Protocol 3.
Never mind.
The enemies that you face throughout the game can be heard talking about you, and when in conflict, they call out your position and communicate with their squad in a realistic way. But military grunts aren't the only ones you'll be fighting. The game stays fresh by mixing a variety of different enemy types throughout the game. You'll fight soldiers, wildlife, robots, and drones, as well as other titans, and even have that occasional boss battle. This actually reminded me a lot of Borderlands, another series that I love. The antagonist in the early portions of the game, Kane, reminded me a lot of a Handsome Jack from Borderlands, but a much more insane and twisted version. Overall, the campaign never gets boring, as you don't even have the chance to get tired of any section or mechanic, as you're always on to the next thing. Which is also kind of a small downside, because that time shift section could be an entire game on its own. But besides that, the game has amazing pacing, and it's a rush from start to finish. I just wish we could have more time to chat with BT, because honestly, he's what pushes this game into that S tier. The dialogue with him alone has so many details that could be made into an entire video by itself.
I have located a security breach. Loading Dock 13. Over.
Roger. Kappa 3 en route. Pound.
Pilot, I cannot free myself. Cooper.
It's all the relatively small things that come together and make this game so special. Titanfall 2 is one of the greatest gaming experiences I've had in a while, and definitely one of the best from this past year. So I have a few more quick games to mention before I crown my top game, but I'll keep it super short because wow, this video's already gotten super long. Frostpunk. This was a game I checked out during a free weekend, and I have to say I absolutely loved it. The idea behind this game is such a unique concept and a twist on the standard city building genre, and I really think they nailed it. I'm excited for the sequel. Battlefront 2. It's a Star Wars game, it's pretty hard to mess that up, yet EA really does exceed expectations. Now that the game is in better state, it's great fun, and that Ewok hunt mode is legitimately terrifying. I don't know why people don't talk about that more often, because oh my god. Minecraft. This one's pretty self-explanatory. I got a video coming on this one soon. Muck. Now this game earns a mention here for a few reasons, first of which because it's actually a really fun game and you should check it out. And second, my video on this game is actually how I got my first 100 subscribers, so if you saw this, you're a real OG. Overcooked. I made a video on this game as well, I thought it was pretty funny. Go decide for yourself, check it out. Phasmophobia. I also have a video on this, and I think that one's actually certified as funny. Rounds. I want to make a video on this. CSGO. I want to make a video on this to ease the pain that it causes. And Tarkov. I really want to make a video on this to ease the pain that it causes. I just clapped a kid. Oh my god, bro. No, he didn't die. I shot him right in the face and he just ate it. And lastly, before I crown that top game, we actually have some dishonorable mentions as well. First of all, I'm gonna have to go with Back 4 Blood, because man, this game was just bad. It was like shockingly horrible. Me and Davis couldn't even make it through the first set of missions because of how boring it was, and just when it seemed like the story was actually going to get good, Davis fell off a bridge and his character stopped talking and we actually never got to hear what they were going to say. Maybe it's gotten better over time, but I wouldn't know. Next, Battlefield 2042. I own the full game, but I actually only ever played the beta because my friends never bought it. If you want to see my video on that, check it out, but I have no comment on the full game. Halo Infinite, the multiplayer kind of blows, but the campaign's really good, so mixed bag. We Happy Few. Now this is a game with an amazing setting and idea for a world, but it's let down by the bugginess, and the story just never really seems to get to that good part. Really hope they actually make a sequel and fully fledge out these ideas, but who knows at this point. Kentucky Route Zero. Beautiful, but boring. They really put the indie in indie game with this one. I don't regret playing it, but I don't think I would ever play it again. It might be for some people, but it's definitely not for me. So, with all of that out of the way, it's finally time to crown my top game of 2021. And drumroll, it was Outer Wilds. Wait, that game came out in 2020? Oh, okay, so my top game that actually came out in 2021 is Inscription. This game is the definition of more than meets the eye. It's difficult to talk about while avoiding spoilers because, like I said with Outer Wilds, this game definitely works best going in completely blind. But I will say, this game is eerie. I think the hair on my body stayed standing up for almost the entire time I was playing this game, just because it was so tense. This game has no jump scares, which is nice, and all the quote horror is really just atmosphere, so it's not scary enough to turn people away, but it also does have enough to have that nice edge to it, and it made for a really great game to play this Halloween. Like I said, play this game completely blind. You can pick it up on Steam for real cheap, and I promise you're gonna like it. But for some reason, if you don't, this is one of those games where you're gonna know if you're gonna like it right at the beginning, so you're gonna know if you want a refund way before that 2-hour mark comes around. So, to avoid the spoilers, I'm just gonna say I recommend this game 100%. It's a 9 out of 10 and a must play from this year, and I hope it gets way more attention. There are tons of interesting mechanics to learn, and the ending, it's just amazing. You have to play it, you really do. So, that was my list. I played over 80 different games this year, and only about 10 of them actually came out in 2021. Which, honestly, for me that's kind of a lot, as I usually play games after they go on sale become dirt cheap, so for me to play that many, and 3 of them were actually full price AAA games, I'd say that's pretty good for me. Unfortunately, this year did have quite a few letdowns and disappointments, but I was able to go back and play some old games, had amazing times, so really, it wasn't that bad. 2021 really just got me excited for 2022 because of you guys and this channel. The explosion in growth really just has me hyped to play more video games and make more videos. And who knows, maybe I'll make some videos on movies and TV, if that's something you guys would be interested in. But for now, thanks for watching.
I can't put him on.
On your feet! Let's go!
Rolling up! Rolling up! Woo! He's got a shit ton of money on him when you get out. Dude, I can't fucking get up, dog. Holy shit! Get up! These fucking rocks are shit! Oh my god, dude. I'm getting killed.